Hello, welcome back to the ETCMA Meet the Experts series of interviews. Today we have a very special guest, Ms. Mina Larson. She's currently the Chief Executive Officer at NCCAOM in the United States. And I think she's got some very unique insights into the history, the current state, and the future of our profession in the global marketplace. And I'm pleased to have Mina join us. Welcome, Mina. Very nice to see you.
Thank you, Aram. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, Mina has a very interesting background. She started her career in journalism and government when she finished her Bachelor of Arts in California State of University in Sacramento. But that wasn't enough. She subsequently finished her Master's in Science for Nonprofit and Organizational Management. And even that wasn't enough. So she went and got an MBA from Maryland University. She's worked in the government with the California State Assembly, even with the governor's office, assistant in the governor's office in the state of California. And she has over 20 years of experience within the NCCAOM from various roles, from Director of Public and Regulatory Affairs to Deputy Executive Director, and currently the Chief Executive Officer. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with NCCAOM, what is it that they do? They're the primary organization within the United States that validates competency of acupuncture and AOM within the states by way of examination, certification, and recertification, re-education. And that positions NCCAOM in an advocacy role, in a role where the government relies on this organization to ensure that the practitioners meet various standards, the highest degree of standards, both with educational, ethics, and disciplinary functions. They basically cover 46 states plus the District of Columbia. That's about 98% of the states. And they are accredited by the National Commission for Certification Agencies in the United States. Now, NCCAOM primarily, as I mentioned, is involved in regulatory affairs, ethics and disciplinary activities for their members and member practitioners. Advocacy role, by default, as an organization such as large organizations such as that, you take on the role of advocacy in state and local governments. And ultimately, education and retraining, making sure that their NCCAOM certified diplomats and accredited individuals maintain their certification and maintain their education. And I could tell you my personal story. I was one of the first NCCAOM grads and diplomats. And I'll tell you, this piece of paper was instrumental in opening many doors for me. I was able to leverage this to engage in contractual obligations and work within a fertility center in California that allowed me to collaborate with MDs and fertility endocrinologists to perform acupuncture for IVF therapies. This gives you credibility, credentials, and recognition. So I think having this type of a certification is very important. And I want to hear what Mina thinks about where we were in the United States and where we are going right now. So Mina, take it away.
Thank you so much, Aram. So the NCCAOM, as Aram mentioned, was founded in 1982. We're actually celebrating our 40th anniversary this year. And upon that time in the 70s and 80s, there was a lot of a prohibition of the practice of acupuncture. In fact, acupuncturists were getting arrested for practicing. And where the NCCAOM came in is they started working with the state regulatory agencies throughout the US to start to recognize and regulate acupuncture in each state. And the uniqueness about the United States is that each state has a different scope of practice and different requirements in terms of what they can and cannot do. However, the consistency is the NCCAOM, which is where they come in. The 46 states that you mentioned, all of them require passing of NCCAOM examinations or certification, which allows the state licensing board to rely on our exams for competency. So that goes a long way. Fast forward 40 years, we have the practice of acupuncture that is really become more and more popular. Consumer growth has increased, and the public and practitioners and healthcare is now relying on the NCCAOM so that they could go ahead and find qualified practitioners.
Great.
So we've come a long way.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I see where US was with all the different states and their
Yes.
distinct regulatory functions and distinct degrees of prohibition, very much like where we are in EU member states right now. They all have their own regulations. They all battle with their own demons internally. But what's missing here is what NCCOM did in the US to become the common ground to link and establish credibility for a mechanism by which the states or member EU nations could account for, hey, these individuals have been vetted, they've gone through they have the core competencies as tested and validated, they're okay to work in this profession.
Exactly. And you know, I think in the past, medical doctors were able to practice acupuncture. But now, because of the work that the NCCM has done, along with our accreditation commission and the membership organization, we are the ones that the public can rely on because we have the most extensive training and assessments than other practitioners. That's important.
Yeah, and I think that's where one of the biggest issues that is still undecided in terms of ETCMA's challenges is the training and education. Yeah, I think that's such a key component. If you do not have a really strong educational establishment for your profession, you're going to be at a disadvantage when you go against people like PTs and physical therapists and chiropractors and MDs. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. We are not, you know, because of the educational foundation and the examination requirements for NCCOM, that is where the spotlight is on us in terms of being able to treat all different types of diseases and ailments versus just becoming a modality, which is what's happening with some of these other professions.
Yeah, I agree. Now, what is the most pressing current challenge that NCCOM is faced with?
I think it's a lack of unity and collaboration. That's where I see a big problem happening. My dream is to have all of us, depending, you know, we have great diversities in terms of practice, where we're from, how we studied, but we really need to have a focus and a goal of unity, especially in terms of advocacy, because we're still not seated at the healthcare table in the U.S. Yes, we do have the Department of Labor that's recognized us. We are in the VA. We're working on becoming part of the Department of Defense to be able to be hired. However, we are not yet, for example, there's many insurance plans that do not cover acupuncturists. Medicare still doesn't recognize us as full care primary providers. So there needs to be a collaborative effort within the acupuncture profession to support that movement, to have us be integrated. We have a wonderful system of medicine that can help so many people, particularly with you know, some of the long COVID issues, with mental health, with addiction, and we need to be there at the table. So just that lack of unity and that lack of vision, that vision, I'm going to even take it back to global, having everybody work together towards this goal, because if we don't work together, I'm afraid that we might be able to, the medicine will grow, but the profession will not.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the things that when you mention global, the first thing that comes to my mind is what we're attempting to do at ETCMA is to establish this global initiative. If you're interested in learning more about the global initiative, you can follow up in one of our videos. Dr. Yair presented on the vision of One Voice, that is a global event that includes NCCOM and many other organizations on a global basis. So back to the question now. Any advice, having gone through the gauntlet of US, any advice for us lowly Europeans on what we need to do to get recognized in the member states?
I think we need to work together to establish an educational system or a competency system that's standardized. Because that's what happened in the U.S. And I think the acupuncturists who worked on this back in the day, they realized that we need to find that commonality of standards that the government can rely on. So that is the advice that I would give to our European friends, is to work on a universal standard or universal competency and work together to make sure that that is something that the government and regulatory bodies can rely on, as well as other practitioners and the patients. Because what I'm seeing in Europe and I'm seeing here in the US is that other professions are coming in and practicing acupuncture in an abbreviated format, and patients are going to them because they're not aware of what we're doing. So we need to really fast forward on this whole initiative of creating a global standard and I think that's very, very important. We have to do it, right away.
And it seems to be a time-sensitive issue.
Yes,
it looks
absolutely,
like.
absolutely.
Because I'm seeing a lot of paramedical fields co-opt various components of acupuncture.
Oh, yes.
I mean, massage therapists co-opting a lot of the protocols that we include in our profession, I'm not even going to talk about dry needling and the likes, that's been beaten. That's a dead horse.
Yes, that is. And nurses in the U.S. Nurses are gaining momentum, and they're very positioned to be able to incorporate this into their practice, and they're very mobilized.
Yeah.
So this is one we have to really start putting our support behind a global standard, and really showing our government bodies that this is what we should be recognized. And then also public education. I cannot emphasize the importance of public education, letting the public know that we are the most qualified to be able to treat. Yes. Yeah,
perfectly right. Can you share a little bit about your current activities and or plans on a global scale on some of the projects or things that you're working with?
Absolutely. We're very excited in our work with the UK. We work with the British Acupuncture Council and the British Accreditation Commission to create a pathway for UK practitioners to become NCCAOM certified. It took a few years, but we were able to go ahead and do a comparative analysis to really find out where the gaps are in education within the US and the UK. And now UK practitioners can, through their membership with BAC, and then completing a course, which is, I think, could even be done through practice, they can apply for NCCAOM certification. And the wonderful thing about this is they don't have to leave, the UK. Everything with NCCAOM is all online and digital, and even the CNT course that's required is all online. So this is exciting, and now we're looking at working with other countries. Any countries that have an established accreditation pathway is something that we can work on. And so we're interested in really having our conversations with each of our European partners to be able to see how we can use the NCCAOM as a way to establish standards within that country and competencies, since we already have an established model. And then the other work that I think is exciting is the work of the big evidence One Voice, which we're working on with Dr. Yari Mamon and yourself and others. That's also going to go a long way in terms of standardizing coding, ICD-11, bringing that into the practice within all acupuncturists, and also public education, which I keep talking about, because I think we really need to work together on it. We need to have a campaign to show patients and providers and insurance companies and governments that this is the education and standards for someone who's an acupuncturist and board certified. Yes. Yeah.
No, I agree. For our audience, for those of you who may not be aware, CNT stands for Clean Needle Technique. Now, in the US, there's a regulatory requirement in addition to all the competencies of being able to practice clean needle technique. That's basically hygienic performance and being able to set up your clean field and what can and can't go in the sharps container, et cetera, all of the functions associated with it, which is really something that in the European educational system is not really focused on. And I think one of the universities in Athens College of East Asian Medicine, actually forces all of their graduates to go through the CNT requirements, with a plan of eventually integrating into the global plan with the NCCAOM. Now, you mentioned something with regards to coding, the ICD stuff. Now, there's different views on the ICD. People frown on it and people love it. The challenge, I think, for us is if we don't integrate education of how to use ICD codes so that our graduates, our professionals, the accredited acupuncturists at the very least know what an ICD code is and what does it equate to, we're going to lose this to the nurses. They know how to do this. They do it in their sleep.
They're doing it. They're doing it now. And as you mentioned, chiropractors, physical therapists, they're already at the table having discussions with insurance companies and Medicare, and getting ready to go ahead and do this. If we are not educating our students and practitioners about the proper use of codes, about notes, and being able to make sure that we are following the protocol to be able to use the codes and to be able to participate in plans, we're going to be in trouble because others will. And who's going to suffer the most are patients, because they're not going to get the same efficacy that they would with us.
Yeah, and the best care. Yeah.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So this is something that I think has to happen. And I know it's controversial. I've talked to many of our diplomats who say, well, we don't want to practice, we don't want to be insurance providers. We want to be, a cash-based business. That's fine. You don't have to be, but we need to be able to teach and educate those that want to be, particularly in the schools, that this is something that we have to learn.
Even in the cash practice, a lot of patients would request you for a super bill. And if you don't know how to code an ICD super bill to give to your patient, you know, you're going to lose that patient. So I agree.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we need to be part of the healthcare system, particularly now. People need us. I mean, there's some things that with some of the research that's been out there in terms of being able to treat so many different diseases, and it's not just about pain. So that's why I think within the next year or two, I think it's going to be very crucial for us in terms of how we're going to be advocating and integrating ourselves. Like hospitals, if we want to work in hospitals, we have to be able to understand the coding system and use it.
No, I absolutely agree with that. I think it's important that you're here now, because this is time for mobilizing, and this is for all ETCMA members. If you're watching this, it's time to mobilize. If we cannot unify ourselves as a group of professionals, just like MDs did, just like chiropractors did, just like PTs did, if we can't focus our efforts into a unified voice, we will lose the profession. I know this is crying wolf, boy crying wolf. No, it's real. It's serious.
I agree. And I think we have to have a plan, and we have to set aside our differences. As I mentioned, there's a lot of wonderful diversity in our profession in terms of educational hours, where we studied, who we studied with, but we have to, in this area, we have to, follow the footsteps of some of the other professions that have been able to gain, recognition.
Great. Thank you very much. It was great information. Sure. Anything else you want to share? Any thoughts, any ideas, any last minutes?
The only last minute is that we are here. The NCCAOM is committed to partnering and helping our European friends. We are here to provide information, whether it's public education, information about regulation, and practice management. That's what we're here for. So anyone who would want to contact us, we're here. And Aram, as our long-term diplomat, we're here to be able to promote and really elevate our profession. That is what we do, and that's what we're wanting to continue to work with.
Thank you,
our friends.
Thank you very much, Mina. It was a pleasure. I hope to have you back some other time when we're discussing some grand achievements that we've been able to accomplish. Everyone, thank you for joining us. This is Mina Larson, the CEO of NCCAOM. I'll see you in the next show. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.